Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name's Caleb and we're going to do a bike check on my super sick Stumpjumper that I built and have ridden since about the past year. It's spray down time. Now, this bike is weighing in at about 33.7 pounds, and I'm actually pretty happy with that considering the Float X2 and the 38 on it, which are pretty beefed up. There's also not all carbon parts on this, so if I wanted to improve, there is some room for that. Let's start off by talking about the frame. I got this frame off of Pinkbike for a pretty good deal, after debating for a while if I should build versus buy. One of the questions I get asked the most is if this is a custom paint job. This is the 2019-2020 S-Works model that you can get as a frame-only option with this killer purple factory paint job. Although it did come with some mint green lettering that I ended up hand-cutting white vinyl for to match this build. The process of putting the vinyl on was pretty tedious. I got the frame and almost immediately started working on putting the vinyl on. It took me about 2 days, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Let's talk about the suspension next, because that's really the heart of this bike. The stock Stumpjumper has a 150mm front fork and 140mm of rear travel. This bike has a 160mm front fork and 150mm of rear travel. This was really important for this build because I wanted it to be very enduro capable while still having a playful suspension platform like a trail bike. In the front, I'm running a factory Fox 38 with a Grip 2 damper. And in the rear, I'm running a Fox Factory Float X2 to match all the adjustments of the Grip 2 damper and the fork. This brings me to the next question that I get asked quite often, which is actually kind of two questions about how the rear shock fits on this frame. See, the reason for this question is that I've actually upped the stroke length in the shock from a 210 by 50 to a 210 by 55, giving it that extra travel length. If you were to ask Specialized or Fox if this shock fits on the frame, they would tell you that the air can does not clear the frame. Although, if you simply let out all of the air in the shock, install it on the frame, and air it back up, it fits. And I actually haven't had any problems with it scratching the frame. Another great question I got about my suspension is what do I run my settings at? Now, I keep all that information in a notes file on my phone so I don't forget it and I can go back between my race setup and when I'm just messing around on my bike. I weigh 160 pounds and so in the front for race season I run 85 psi, which gives me around 28mm of sag. Now, all these numbers are how many clicks from closed I run the adjustments. For low speed rebound I run 9 clicks, high speed rebound is 8 clicks, low speed compression, 9 clicks, high speed compression, 7 clicks. In the rear, I run on 190 psi, which gives me around 11.6mm of sag. For the clicks, I'm running low speed rebound 19 clicks, high speed rebound 14 clicks, low speed compression 12 clicks, and high speed compression 17 clicks. In the rear, I'm also running all of the volume spacers. So when I'm not racing, my adjustments don't actually change too much. In the front fork, I'll go up by 5 psi, and in the rear shock, I'll go up by 10 psi. I also just change the clicks by going down 1 on each adjustment. For brakes, I decided to get some Shimano Saints, which are more downhill and freeride oriented brakes, but I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it when it comes to stopping power. The white bike behind me is actually a short travel Stumpjumper that I'm running some SRAM G2 RSC brakes on. And both of these brakes have the same adjustments with the lever position and free stroke. I actually prefer the G2 brakes when I've been running them for a while because they have more stopping power immediately, but these are also very nice. They don't heat up as fast as the G2s, and for long downhill runs, that's definitely very good. I like to do stoppies with my G2 brakes that grab immediately. Let's talk about drivetrain next. I actually went with something different rather than SRAM or Shimano and went with box components and their Prime 9 group set. As the name Prime 9 indicates, there are only 9 gears, although it still has around the same range as most 12 speeds with an 11 to 50 tooth cod. In my experience, this has actually been a great pro for the group set as I'm having to shift a lot less and I can just find the gear I want to be in a lot faster. This also helps a lot for racing. One of the cons though has definitely been the clutch. In our experience, we first went with the box 2. Now, box components has the box 1, 2, and 3. 1 is the highest end model with the most adjustability, 2 is supposed to be the most durable, and 3 is the most budget. Now, we first went with 2 for the durability, although after blowing a clutch out completely, I went ahead and bought a box 1 derailleur, which has definitely helped a bit now that I can adjust the clutch, but it's still a little noisy for my liking. All in all, for the price, this has been a pretty good drivetrain. I do wish it shifted a little smoother and that the clutch was a better design. If you are considering buying one, I would definitely also recommend to keep 2 chains, as it is specific to the 9-speed. Would I do it again? Maybe, but also there's axis. But also that costs a lot more. For the crankset, I have some race face turbine aluminum cranks with a 32 tooth absolute black oval chainring on it. I didn't necessarily notice the difference going to an oval chainring, but after riding another bike with a round ring on it, I felt like I was just spinning, so I definitely do enjoy the oval chainring. So in the cockpit, we're running a Diety Copperhead stem with 35 millimeters of length, and my bar is a 31.8 millimeter diameter. It's an aluminum specialized bar cut down to 780 millimeters, right where I like it. For the dropper lever, I'm actually running a wolf tooth lever to actuate my transfer post. Another thing that I think is pretty cool about my custom build is my top cap. I actually painted it myself to match the colors of the bike. For the pedals, I'm running some Crankbrothers Stamp 7 flat pedals. I personally really like the way that flat pedals feel, and these have loads of grip, so I never really have a problem with my feet just flying off. For the seat, I'm running a WTB Volt Saddle, and it gets the job done. I never really feel uncomfortable on it, and I've run them for probably about 2 or 3 years on different bikes. For the grips, I'm running some ODI Lock-On Vans Grips, and I've run those types of grips for probably about 1.5 years now. Initially, I just tried them because they looked cool on my bike, but I actually really like the way that they ride. Now, for the wheel set, I actually researched hubs first, and I found a company called Onyx that makes the Onyx Vespers. These hubs are super cool for a few reasons. They have virtually instant engagement, with the only play being in the chain. They do this by using a different design than the ratcheting pawls. It is essentially a one-way bearing that also allows for very low drag. Without the use of the ratcheting, the hubs are actually completely silent, which is somewhat controversial for some people, and I was a little worried when I first ordered them that I wouldn't like it, but after even riding it just once, they were a completely different experience. You feel like you're just floating on the trail. Let's talk tires. We'll talk about tire preference, tire pressure, and Cushcore. For tires, I'm actually running some specialized tires, and I really like the way that they grip. I've run Maxes many times, but these actually are a lot more durable to me and have a lot more grip in my opinion. In the rear, I'm running an Eliminator 2.3 Black Diamond, and in the front, I'm running a Butcher Grid Trail 2.6. Now, onto tire pressure. A good thing to note is that I run Cushcore during the race season. And here it is. It's a foam insert that you put onto your rim, and I run it for a few different reasons. The main one being that I know I won't destroy my rim in the middle of a run while running lower pressure to maintain more grip. Which, that kind of brings me to the next point. Why don't I run it all the time? Well, I kind of like to do a bit of shrouping and roosting, and you can't really fold the tire while it's in there. Definitely has a different feel to it. Now, onto the actual PSI that I run. I like to run mine actually pretty high. So when it's not the race season and I'm just messing around, I like to run mine between 25 to 28 psi, the front being 1 or 2 psi higher than the rear. And then during the race season, I like to run it between 21 to 23 psi. What about frame protection? We got a question about that from one of our followers, and we actually use Ride Wrap. This is the covered MTB protection kit. It's a clear layer that goes on the bike to protect from scratches and rocks and things like that. And it's quite tedious to put on. It probably took the longest out of anything to complete this build, but it is quite worth it in the end to protect it. Well, that wraps up this bike check on my Stumpjumper. Once again, thank you to everyone who sent in questions and helped make this video. And I'm gonna go ride. Thanks for watching.